jury in the jury room. And yesterday I misspoke. Age takes its toll. I thought yesterday was Thursday at the end of the day. Maybe it was just because it seemed like a longer day, but in any event, so anything I said about schedule is somewhat compromised. It would be ideal if we could finish on Friday, but let's see what happens. Anything else before we get started?
Two things, Your Honor. One, my next witness is going to be Dr. John Black, and his testimony will involve a computer program and demonstrative evidence with all videos that have already been entered into evidence, and how he establishes the times that he'll testify to. And what I'm asking the court to allow is to have him testify at this witness stand to my left, so that he can be hooked into the cord and manipulate his computer.
Any objection to that?
No.
Okay.
And then there's the Armstrong Report. There's been new photographs, and there's already been testimony about some old I shouldn't say photographs, enhancements of video evidence would be the correct statement. It's my understanding that Mr. Armstrong testified that the video program he uses is Amped, and Amped has an internal printout of everything that the operator does on it. So if I do X, X is documented, you push the button, it says he did X. My understanding is that there should be a report for that, and then the new photographs today. And our question comes into, on testimony, on cross-examination, when he was testifying to what he did to the video, there's a definite discrepancy between the aspect ratios and the amount of pixels, so I'm asking for that report. And then the new photographs, which the state intends to introduce in the rebuttal case, I would like the report from Amped for that, so that we can check that. I spoke to Mr. Binger, he said he would try to do that. I don't know if he can or he can't.
Are you saying the program is named Amped?
Yeah.
He needs a microphone on.
Yeah.
My understanding from Senior Examiner Armstrong's testimony is that he used a program known as Amped, A-M-P-E-D, the number 5. If he did use that program, Amped 5, which is a gold standard of forensic analysis, Amped 5 does produce a report of all manipulations or actions taken upon the start to the finish. That's the report I think we're talking about right now.
Okay.
I just like that, those reports. There should be two of them.
I didn't hear the last thing you
There
said.
should be at least two of them, one for each change.
Anything else?
Well, I mean, we don't have to. I don't believe we have an obligation to provide that. This is a very late request. This will probably push rebuttal into tomorrow, because he's gonna have to go. If these reports exist, that I am not saying that they do. He'd have to go back. He's on his way here now. He'd have to go back to the crime lab and get them.
Well,
So-
can you reach him? And
I mean, I can certainly try.
why would you do that? I'm not going to worry about anything till it happens. Well, let's see what can be done on that. And then, were you done on that?
Yes.
Then I did get Mr. Binger's transmission of last night, which unfortunately was not. Was there other than the initial minute or two? Was there actual video, or was it black screen?
There was. It's like a 20-some minute compilation video with the defendant's voice.
Well, let me try it. Let me try opening it here, because at home it was there. I was able to hear the audio, but the video was all black. So I don't know what the significance of that is until I look at it. Hopefully it'll open here. I guess that's it. All right. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
I'm about to, I guess, forward an email that we just received a phone call from someone who supposedly spoke to a juror, or spoke to someone who spoke to a juror. I don't think it's anything, but it just for the. Just
That's
to be,
pretty. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm sorry. Just to be transparent, when we get these communications, we are giving them to the court.
Excellent, and appreciate it. And we've gotten inundated, as you would expect with a case with this degree of publicity, and all kinds of wild things are said, and as long as you folks are aware of them and can deal with it, or ask me to deal with it to the extent that I'm able, we'll do it. I would hate to be someone who got caught doing some of this stuff. All right. Anything else?
I'm just going to call Mr. Armstrong. I just want to verify.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you want for the.
Pardon me? Go ahead, what you have to do
Well,
to...
they might be moving the witness.
Well, just because he
Oh.
won't be able to see the TVs from so far away.
Oh, okay, so you're going to stay in the usual place?
I
Oh,
think it would work out.
bless you. TV people some. How long will that take to move your cameras? Okay. I guess that's the plan, so.
Jury.
you ready to roll them? All right. Ready for the jury?
Yes.
Oh, one more thing. I have now opened again the link that you sent me from the Washington Post, and it won't open now. I was doing better before. Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. Okay.
During a summer marked by protest.
Yeah, this looks like it's complete, so I'll take a look at it at the break. Okay, get the jury down. Yeah, good morning, and good morning, everyone. And you're seated a little differently for convenience purposes. Some technical reasons have dictated this temporary change, and it makes no other difference in the case. And then I wanted to just observe that it's Veterans Day. And any veterans in the room, on the jury, or anywhere else? Well, that's unusual not to have at least somebody in here. But Dr. Black is what branch?
Army, sir.
Okay, and I think we give a round of applause to the people who've served this country. Okay, so you may proceed.
Defense will call Dr. John Black to the witness stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give this matter with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
Doctor, I'm going to hand you a series of documents and then ask you to testify and authenticate to them, please. First document I'd like you to look at is Defense Exhibit 140.
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
This is the curriculum vitae of me, Annex A, that was tendered with my expert report.
And how long is that document?
43 pages, sir.
And does that include your life and professional experiences?
It includes the highlights of them, but yes, sir.
And what I want to get into is a little bit of your background as it applies to this case. Have you ever worked in a law enforcement capacity?
Yes, sir, I have.
How long?
Approximately 23 years.
Where?
Washington County, Oregon.
Is there a city around there that we...
It's the first county to the sort of, if you're looking at it, between the coast and Portland.
Okay. And what were your duties in that department?
My duties range from a lot of stuff. I started as a patrol officer. It would be actually a deputy. From there, I was a corporal. I became a sergeant, again in patrol or operations, what you commonly think about as patrolling. I was also a training sergeant. I then became a lieutenant, and there's 4 divisions in there: corrections, patrol, investigations, and support, sort of you think the way it operates. And then I was a lieutenant and in some cases acting commander, which is the person that oversees all the operations within those individual divisions. Additionally, I oversaw professional standards, which is the unit that oversees if things are done right, if things can become better, to include internal affairs. And then I was also the person that oversaw and designed the use of force program within that agency.
At any time in the employment in law enforcement, did you have an opportunity to work with videographic evidence?
Oh, absolutely. As a deputy coming up, we would commonly use video type of evidence in our investigations. I mean, think about robberies or anything else, and you have ATM video or similar type of things. When I oversaw such things in the jails are commonly monitored with cameras, and if there was allegations of complaints, and for a period of time as the jail operations lieutenant, I oversaw every allegation of a complaint. We would review evidence to include the video evidence. That would have been the time frame for that. As I oversaw the detective division, detectives which oversaw sex crimes, homicides, car task force, fraud, you name it, it was underneath the detective division. Again, video evidence is pervasive. It's used throughout. And then we would have to make sure that the examination of such video evidence would withstand challenge in court, and more importantly, that we were doing it correctly. So I would commonly be, as the head of the unit on the big cases, make sure that sort of a quality control, I guess would be the best way to put it.
And in your military experience, did you have any occasion to work with videographic evidence?
Yes, sir. In the military, what the branch I was in, the service, the Army, my entire time was in what's called special operations. And because of that, I have several what they call military occupational specialties, or MOSs. One of the MOSs I have, I think the last count was about 7 of them. One of them is specifically about intelligence, just like you think about intelligence to gather information. As part of being an intelligence qualified officer or non-commissioned officer, is we would routinely look at surveillance video. We would use surveillance video to plan operations. We would covertly make sure video is happening, drone video. We used video in our how we operated. Body-worn cameras were with the military long before they were with police. And we would have to make sense of this video, or when it came in from another thing, you have intelligence units. There was an entire portion of that unit designed to focus on what's called IMINT, or imagery intelligence, IMINT, Manticore Report. And then so because of that, we routinely both used it, operated with it, similar type of things.
And in the intelligence capacity, did you analyze, enhance, and do things to video?
When required.
Okay. When it was
when required.
And in the course of your profession, let me back up a second. I apologize. What was the highest rank you achieved in the military?
I retired from the military after 30 years with the rank of Sergeant Major, which, to put it lateral to other services, is an E9, or enlisted rank 9, which is, you have a command Sergeant Major, which I did as a, we'll call it a temporary duties, but I remained primarily an Operations Sergeant Major, which is the highest non-commissioned rank in the military.
Now, in this case, I engaged you for several tasks, but one of those was video analysis, correct?
Video analysis is in support of understanding the event, yes.
Okay. And are you certified in the operation of any video programs that you used in this case?
Yes. I used a video program known as Input ACE, version 2.6.3. Input ACE is a program specifically designed to allow people without a lot of high-level skill, like high computer forensics or anything else, to examine video in such a way that when you examine it, you're not doing things to it, like altering it or anything else, that when you're looking at it, you can have some trust in what you do with it, that you're looking at the best that it can be with what it can provide. And within Input ACE, I'm certified at what they call both the operator level, and I'm also certified at the examiner level.
And what's the difference between an operator level and an examiner level?
So an operator level would, let's say, import videos, allow them to basically transfer with codecs or anything else. You could play them, maybe cut a couple pieces out, do these type of things. At an examiner level, you're actually doing, we'll call it manipulation. In other words, you're scaling it, you're looking at things, and so you have to have an understanding about how that happens. So, for example, there's certain ways, and I think you heard earlier in the testimony of Senior Examiner Armstrong, he used the word interpolation. So with interpolation, there's certain ways things get interpolated. Not really a word, but it will work for now. And so the thing is, if I don't understand those things, I can't have trust within what I'm working with to better understand the totality of the event and what I'm looking at.
Now, when you look at videographic evidence, is frames per second something that's important?
It's one of the things, yes, sir.
Tell the jury what frames per second means.
Yeah, I mean, it's frames per second. So when you look down on your phone and it's recording a video or something else like that, you might see something that it's 30 FPS, the shorthand for frames per second. What that's telling you is, imagine if you were to take 30 still shots and just keep taking them at approximately 0.033 seconds, 30 frames per second, just take 1 second divided by 30. It would take 30 of those pictures in a continuous stream to make the 1 second that you're looking at, 30 frames per second. 60 frames per second. 60 frames just means that rather than having 30 still shots, you got 60 still shots. It's still 1 second, still the same resolution, potentially, depending if you haven't changed anything else. You're just getting more just micro snapshots with each point in time.
Do all videos run at the same frame per second amount?
Oh, no, absolutely not. And for example, in the examiner certifications, one of the things you're looking for just to get a feel is you look at things like frames per second and resolution and the codecs that it's using and these type of things. For example, 30 frames per second is common, but also 24 frames per second is common for high definition video because it's a more universal type of things. Or I want to say 23.95 something or 6 something is used for what they call NTSC. N, November, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, which is more of a European format like PAL. So the fact is, the short answer is the frame rates will vary depending on who's using what kind of camera or equipment or what they're trying to do.
Now, resolution is also a part of the analysis?
Resolution is part of understanding the video, yes.
And what is, how do you define resolution?
Yeah, it's defined a couple of different ways, but it really is talking about the same thing, and I think you heard it. Is it all right to refer to my notes?
Yeah.
May I refer to my notes?
Sure.
So, for example, in earlier testimony by Senior Examiner Armstrong, the idea of what they were looking at when they were talking about one of the exhibits is 1920 by 844. So the question is, what does that mean? It means 1920 pixels across and 844 pixels high. So if you were to take each one of those things, and basically a pixel is the smallest element within that picture of a single color. It's just like a Lego block, that's all it is. So 1920 across, 844 high. Well, if I spread that out, and I think you guys, I apologize, but I'm just to the jury, imagine taking your phone and you spread it out, you get those sort of sharp edges where it looks like you had to get a bunch of squares together. You're looking at the edges of where the pixels are. When those things begin to get smoothed out, a lot of times what that is, and the software does amazing stuff, is that software smoothing it out, or what's called interpolating it, enhancing it, clarifying it. There's other verbs given to it. But so resolution is actually very critical.
Now, when one tries to look at different videos, but syncing them up, what role does sound play?
Yeah, so one of the things that's kind of unique with when you have it like an MP4 file, a very common type of file, in a video format, there's a soundtrack to it. Well, when I try to store video, most people, most programs, we want to sort of compress it up because it takes a lot of space. So what a lot of programs do is they'll take a look at it and say, hey, you know what, those 30 frames per second, 3 or 4 of them are just really exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of those frames. So it's going to save me some space when I store it, right? But the audio track, which is completely separate, is not compressed. It's true against time. So what I do, and to understand and do the analysis, is I try to get as many different things, an audio track, take a look at the reports on what people perceive, take a look at the different videos, because remember, videos come from different perspectives. Sometimes we have them dead on, another person was to the left, and then what you do is you sort of put this all together to index it so you can get the best possible approximation of things like time and these type of things.
And is sound used to help sync up the videos?
Yes, sir.
And when you use sound, do you use a computer program to analyze that?
I do.
What is that?
It's actually Wavemaster Pro by NCH.
Okay. And when sound is analyzed, it puts together what would commonly be like a picture graph that's, excuse me, referred to as a waveform.
Yes.
And a waveform then allows you to see where the sound is for an event that's in the video, correct?
Well, it allows me to, so a waveform, if you've ever seen them, is those things that sort of have the big spikes in them and this type of stuff. A gunshot, for example. A gunshot has a loud percussive noise. I listen to the thing as it's playing, I see a big spike within the waveform. I can now mark that spike and say, that's the beginning of the gunshot. I listen some more, I watch the waveform shift, there's another spike. So what it allows me to do is it allows me to see a visual representation of sound, and now I don't have to be sort of hitting the space bar or using a stopwatch to hope I'm at or around the sound. I can actually mark that sound within it. It's the same if I look at it for 2 minutes or 20 minutes, the sound still occurs in the same place.
And you're using the frames per second, which is a known, to determine the distance between shot 1 and shot 2, so to speak.
Actually, what I'm doing is within the sound software, I know that the time between, let's just say, and let's use gunshots, shot 1 and shot 2, whatever that might be, but 2 shots. We'll call them shot 1 and shot 2. As they play in front of me, I can mark them. I see a finite time measurement. I can now, with an index point back in the video, I can go back to the video and say, oh look, there's the same place that sound is occurring in the video frames. Well, now since I have a known time from the sound, I can then begin to take that known time and back it up to the other shot. Now, a quick point of clarification. Sound does not travel absolutely perfect. Shorthand is basically, for the time in this place, the distance of 1,100 feet, which is about where this event was occurring. It would take sound about a second to travel. So if you were standing in the middle of all this, it might be half a second this way or half a second that way. So you make allowances for that, but you have to understand that sound isn't an absolute determiner. That's why you have to take all this in total when you're thinking about it. But that's part of the way that you index.
Now, in the course of your engagement in this case, you prepared a report which was labeled a supplemental report, Exhibit 141, correct?
That is correct.
And then, because there was new videographic evidence found recently, you added to a supplemental, and that is Exhibit 141, correct?
Well, 141 is the supplemental, as at least what I have in my hand.
The preliminary is 139, and the sup is 141.
That is correct.
Okay, if I misspoke, I apologize.
Yeah.
And you also did a timesheet, which is Exhibit 142, correct?
Also correct.
Now, what I was looking from you was for the total time of events that happened on August 25th of 2020, beginning with what happened at Car Source 1, correct?
Part of the timings, that's my understanding, yes.
And I gave you what would be a known time where Kyle is on video stating friendly, friendly, friendly. And you synced that amongst other videos, correct?
You gave me a known location to look at. The time is estimated, and then what I did is, using that as a start point, I actually found other places to sync, and I worked backwards to that time.
And when you synced up all the not all the different videos, but the videos that you used in this case, you were able to get them to sync to what levels?
In the first point, the sync points that I primarily use as points of reference. So just think about something that can be seen in a bunch of different things. So the sync points that I used was the high arc of the bag being thrown. You can see the different shadows and everything else. So from a video point, I was able to find that in a lot of different places, and I use that as a sync point. The other things from an audio standpoint is the gunshots. Now the gunshots can move depending on how far the person is away that's recording that sound. And in these cases, it could be 150 feet is about 1/10 of a second or a little bit more. So between the different things, I would say I have confidence in the different timings here, plus or minus 1/10 of a second.
Now, and then I asked you to break down basically into several groups, but event number 1 starting with friendly, friendly, correct?
Yes, sir.
What I would refer to as the transition from event 1 to event 2, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then event number 2 from beginning to end.
With the beginning being from the first strike with what's been shown as a person with a rock-like object.
Okay. And then the end of event 2 would be defined as what?
The fourth shot by Kyle Rittenhouse.
And from the end of event 2 going on to end being what?
Are you asking the point in time
Yeah.
or the actual measurement?
The actual act that ended your calculation.
So from the fourth shot by Kyle Rittenhouse in event 2 until the point where he's seen in the video raising his hands, and I refer to that simply as surrender to the police.
And you used, in your calculations of time and video, you used 6 different videos?
I looked at all of them. I narrowed it down to the ones that are most relevant so I could keep the timings consistent.
So what you're saying is there's 180 and I'm throwing out a number, but over 100 different videos, those are the 7 that you used to calculate these times and values.
Those are the primary ones, and then I validated them with the other ones.
Okay. Now, let's get started with that. The start of event number 1, do you have that available?
Yes, as in, do you want me to show it by video?
Yes.
Okay. So at this point, and understanding what this point is, this is from, if you can see on your screen, the parent file. This would be the point where friendly, friendly, friendly is heard within the soundtrack. And obviously we can play that as well. So.
Please.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is beyond the scope of the court's order.
This is all
One
timing.
of those 5-minute breaks in the library. Let's do that. Please don't talk about the case. What's up, Mr. Bingham?
Your Honor, the court has signed an order that specifies the scope of Dr. Black's testimony. That order indicates that he is going to be allowed to testify to what is contained on paragraph 19 of his preliminary report dated July 31st, 2021, in subsection 3A1. That subsection reads,
This is the report, counsel.
page 19, subsection 3A1. This pertains to the shots at Joseph Rosenbaum. That subsection reads, the 4 shots occur in approximately 1 second with the times in hundredths of a second of 0.26, 0.25, and 0.23 respectively between shots 1, 2, 3, and 4. The court has also ruled that the witness can testify as to the information contained on page 22 of his report in paragraph 4A and 4A1. That pertains to the timing of the shots in what counsel describes as the second event, where the defendant shoots at the unidentified individual, Mr. Huber and Mr. Grosskreutz. And there's some timing information there. I won't read it right now because it's a little bit longer. But the court's order is very specific, that those are the items he can testify about with regard to timing. There's another section of his report he can testify about that has to do with sense making, but right now he's being asked about timing. And we have a document, which I guess is exhibit number 142, that was just presented to us this morning. It appears to have 31 different time entries on it. All of them, except for like 4 or 5 of them, are beyond the scope of the court's order. This document contains characterizations of behavior that this witness is not allowed to testify about.
I haven't seen the document.
Okay, so for example, he indicates with observation number 7.
Is there a copy? Go ahead, Mr. Bingham.
Observation number 7 is characterized by this witness as JR elevation change hyphen lunge decision point. What I'm interpreting that is Joseph Rosenbaum's elevation change lunge decision point. This witness is not, by the court's order, allowed to testify as to what Mr. Rosenbaum was doing or his intent or anything like that. This was the subject of our motion hearing. The court has excluded that. There's other characterizations too. For example, the reference observation point number 15 and 16, referring to people striking the defendant. Number 19, striking the defendant. Number 22, striking the defendant. Number 25, the gun of Gage Grosskreutz pointed towards the defendant. These are all things that the preliminary report that this witness offered talked about, but now we have ruled, or we've agreed, and the court has ordered that he's not going to be talking about those things. So the scope of this document, 142, is well beyond the court's order. What he's being asked right now, and what I objected, is beyond the court's order. What he is characterizing in this Exhibit 142 in terms of his interpretation of what various people in the case were doing or what their intent was or anything like that is beyond the scope of the court's order. So my understanding from the court's order was he'd be able to say gunshot 1, 2, 3, and 4 to Rosenbaum happened in this amount of time. And then the second set of gunshots happened in this amount of time. And that's it, as far as the timing. The court's order was very specific as to that. So when we're talking about friendly, or throwing the bag or things like that, that's outside of that time frame.
I'm using demonstrative evidence to show how he reached these times. And it's all evidence that's already been testified to and admitted. Some of the evidence has been enhanced, just like the state enhanced the bag, some of the other photos. He's a licensed, trained video specialist. He has the background, and we're showing the jury what he used to get these values. And that shows how he did it and the reliability of doing it. And I'm not worried about what Mr. Binger's talking about, the comments or anything like that. That's a way that he found the times. And Your Honor, just time in relationship to video in this case is so important. Yesterday afternoon, Mr. Binger spent much time cross-examining my client regarding those approximately 30 frames from the BG on the scene. And that was approximately 1/10 of a second. And he spread it out, and what we're trying to do is show through video the true events of that night. And I believe it is with the court's order, because basically what we're looking at is an event, and the state can quibble with my time of when I started the event. They might say it's back 5-10 seconds before or whatever, but the total time of the event from friendly until he surrenders at the police car, 2 minutes and 55 seconds. The jury should know that. The events of each of the sub-events, the total time, the jury should know that. What happened between the two events, the jury should know that. They've been shown videos already of that.
Well,
If I may respond briefly.
yes, sir.
First of all, what counsel has just mentioned in terms of the overall timing is something he's free to play video and argue. The question is what this expert witness can testify to. The court has ordered specifically what he can and cannot testify to. Your order is one of limitation. It specifies the limits of what he can testify to. It's a fundamental notice issue, Your Honor. In his preliminary report, he didn't have information regarding the timing from friendly. That was a report from 3 months ago. We were not put on notice that there would be this testimony through this witness as to the timing of from the very beginning of all this to the very end. This Exhibit 142 is the first document we've received, and it was received today.
It was provided yesterday.
Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt.
It is the first document we've received from the defense pertaining to this witness with regard to the timing of the entire evening. It is beyond the court's order. We have not received proper notice as to this subject. I have no problem having this witness testify to observations 8, 9, 10, and 11. That is the exact scope of the court's order. Shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4. I have no problem with him testifying as to items, observations 20, 21, 23, and 26. Those are the 4 shots in the second incident with Grosskreutz, Huber, and the unknown assailant. That's exactly what this court limited him to. Those 8 observations on this sheet of paper. Everything else on this exhibit, which we just received, is beyond the scope of the court's order. We've not been provided notice of it. It wasn't in his original preliminary report. It is being sprung on us in the middle of trial. The court has ordered on this. We had a hearing on this. The court gave the defense opportunity to put us on notice of these things. We talked about these limitations. There was an agreement among the parties as to these limitations, which led to your order, Your Honor. And now the defense is going around that order. And I object to that.
Your Honor, I ask the court to think back to what's happened procedurally in this case. That FBI video didn't come around until about 2 weeks before trial. The drone video didn't come back until during trial. And most of this work has been done over the last 2 days to catch up to those exhibits. I provided this exhibit yesterday afternoon when it was first provided. The only change to it is and was a typo, which actually inures to the state's benefit by adding approximately 9 seconds.
I quibble with counsel. The FBI video was made available to counsel over 3 months ago.
I don't want to. You know what? I don't want to get into it. It's been argued about before, and then we laid it aside. And at this point, I don't think I want to get into that because it isn't going to be helpful to resolution of the issues that we're after in the case. You know, I'm looking for the order. What was the date of that order?
I think it was November 2nd, Your Honor, but I'll pull it up here.
I believe that order was drafted by Mr. Binger.
It was.
And
I submitted it to all parties. There was no objection to it. It was signed with no objection.
Okay.
And then the video came up after that.
Okay. I am. Here it is. All right. Now I say the order without objection and without really giving it a lot of scrutiny. As you know, we try a lot of cases in here, and because it came in without objection, I signed it, thinking that it covered what I had envisioned at the time of the hearing. I will tell you what I had in mind when, and I haven't looked at if there is even a transcript in existence. I don't think so. But it certainly was my impression that we were talking about video of the entire episode, and not that it certainly in my mind was not limited to the specific numbers on this observation point list that you're talking about. I'm a little bit challenged when you say, is there something that I'm saying that draws the face that you're making? Go ahead, say what you want to say.
I have to say, Your Honor, yesterday I was the target of your ire for disregarding your orders. Today, the defense is disregarding your order. I submitted that draft of that order to the defense. They had an opportunity to review it. They had an opportunity to object to it. We do this all the time in the court system. We submit proposed orders to the defense, to the other side, and to the court for everyone to take a look at. If anyone had a change, an objection to that, if they wanted to expand it, there was plenty of opportunity to do so. There was no response whatsoever from the defense. They never came to this court and said, the proposed order is improper, here is our version of the order. They never came to the court and said the proposed order needs to be amended in some way. They never responded at all, even though they had it, and even though they had plenty of opportunity to do so. They have every incentive to make sure that the court's order with regard to their expert witness is accurate. They have every incentive to make sure that that court order gives them the opportunity to get in all of the evidence through this expert that they feel they need to get in. Despite having that very powerful incentive, they did not object, they did not contact the court or me with any reaction to that order. You are the referee. The parties argue about things and you make a decision. We reached an agreement on this at the Daubert hearing.
I don't think on this issue.
I proposed this compromise, Your Honor. I did, because there was some back and forth about the extent of the use of force issues and all that stuff. And I said, well, what about if we just agree, Dr. Black can talk about the timing of the shots and the sense making. And I then drafted this order. You gave the defense an opportunity to object. They didn't. You signed it. And my recollection, and again, I know you referenced the transcript, but in his preliminary report, Your Honor, all he talks about is the timing of the shots. In event 1, the 4 shots of Rosenbaum. In event 2, the shots against the unknown assailant Heber. So there's nothing further in his preliminary report about the extent of this entire time frame. This Exhibit 142 goes well beyond his preliminary report from July 31st. It goes well beyond what we talked about at the Daubert hearing. It goes well beyond what we agreed to that day. And it goes well beyond this court's order.
If I understand correctly what's being pursued by the state at this point is timing sequence for the time between the friendly and the surrender to the police, which he says is a total of 400 and some, or attempted surrender to the police, which he says is a total of 4 minutes and some seconds. All of which is, every second of which I think has been analyzed here in this courtroom. That was certainly my vision at the time we discussed all this, whether it was each part was specifically discussed in his preliminary report or not. That was my vision of what we were going to be hearing. And I guess the questions I have is, what is the prejudice to the state? Are you suggesting that what he's about to testify to, or may testify to, is going to be different with respect to the new periods of time than it is with respect to the particular periods that you identified in the order that you drafted? Or that's number one, as to whether there's prejudice to the state. Secondly, whether you think that there is some incongruity between the periods of time that might be more fully covered by the examination of the entire time period, because those are the principal issues. We're here, and you've practiced here. You were assigned here for quite a long time, some years ago, and I think that most people would say that I'm pretty open to. I want to have the whole thing presented to whomever is finding the facts, whether it's me or whether it's the jury. I want to know as much as possible, rather than try to isolate particular things and say, well, that isn't. I told the story the other day about the judge from Madison who was tormented whether to grant a motion to dismiss a burglary case on failure of proof of venue, not just proof of venue, whether that municipality was in Dane County or not. And I think, really, are you really worried about this? I don't operate that way. Now, I'm not criticizing you for bringing up this issue. I think it's legitimate, but it's not something that sways my judgment in the case. And unless you can tell me that you have reason to believe that that doctor is going to testify differently about some of these other time periods within that less than 5 minute period, or that you are somehow prejudiced by the late arrival of the report, and I don't want to say late, although, okay, that's fair, then I'm going to allow the testimony to be given.
If I may respond, Your Honor.
Please.
Yesterday, as I said, I was under the court's ire.
I don't want to talk about.
Well,
why don't we
I
just?
think it's a fundamental fairness issue, Your Honor.
All right, say what you want to say.
If I'm being held to obey the court's orders, I'm asking that the defense be held to that too. This is something we litigated at a Daubert hearing. We spent time on this.
I am going to interrupt you, and then I'm going to let you talk again. But I was talking yesterday about the Constitution of the United States and how the Supreme Court has interpreted it for 50 years. That's not what we're talking about here today.
So, this is a notice issue to the state. We have not been provided proper notice of this, and clearly if the shoe were on the other foot and we tried something like this, there would be quite a kerfluffle about that. That's one point. This is, as I said earlier, it's beyond even his preliminary report. Like he's just adding new things at the last minute like this, and this is not prompted by new drone footage or anything like that. There's no mention of drone footage in this report. So to fall behind the excuse of, well, other new evidence has come forward, it doesn't change the fact that this is an expert. There are notice requirements for experts. There has been no notice of this issue. We've already litigated this, and now the defense is trying to expand it in direct violation of the court's order. One moment, Your Honor. I also wanted to point out that I think it's Exhibit 141 is a supplemental report that apparently Mr. Black prepared on October 24th, according to the date. We just got it yesterday. So again, another example of late notice here. I understand that the court wants to hear, or wants the jury to hear, the timing from the beginning of whenever we start to the end, whenever we redraw that line. I understand that. There are other ways for us to do that, of course. We can take other videos. They all have timestamps on them. This expert is not needed for that. I don't think we're going to need that time frame down to the hundredths of a second. I think even tenths of a second, even 1 second is probably close enough for the jury to understand that this is not something that took days or hours. It was a matter of minutes. So I think they can already get that point without this expert's testimony. The one specific item of prejudice that I do want to bring to the court's attention is in Exhibit 142. As I pointed out earlier, there are characterizations here.
Well, I agree with you there. Doctors, I assume he's using it for to pinpoint particular events, and I agree with you. He's not going to be permitted to do that.
Okay, so I want to be. Again, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and that I'm understanding things clearly from the court. There are, for example, observation number 7 on 142 has a characterization of Mr. Rosenbaum's behavior. That will not be allowed?
He's going to have to find some way to express that that
Not using the word
is not conclusory.
change in elevation?
I'm going to try to let you do it in a prudent way, and if there's an objection, I'll deal with it.
Okay.
But yeah, I do think his objection is well stated, that there's some conclusory language in there which is to be avoided.
I can refer to, they're queued up. I can refer to, if he objects to that, I can just refer to it as 7.
That would seem to be unobjectionable.
I think if these are things where we're just going to show the jury that item, that moment in time, they can see it on the screen, then we don't need a witness to tell us what we're seeing. That make it easy.
I'm not, I can't anticipate what he might ask or what your objection might be, so I'm not going to try to.
I would also continue by objecting to observations 15.
Go slow.
15.
As you mean to the description of the event that he gives?
Yes.
Yeah, I think any of his descriptions are going to have to be non-conclusory on his part.
That's fine.
Okay, perhaps just to point to the particular moment in time and say this is at such and such an hour. I don't know.
Can I list the ones that I want to raise for, so we're...
No, because you can object when it happens. Because maybe, see, if I rule on everything now, then I may be talking about things that may never become an issue, and I'd rather, the jury's in the library now, and I'd rather get them out here.
Okay. One final thing, Your Honor. If there is any data or reports that are generated by the software that Dr. Black is using when he prepares all this, I would like that. We've received a similar request from the defense this morning for Mr. Armstrong's things, so I would like that information from the defense.
No problem. Do you have any? Does your
I
program?
can generate them. It's going to take a little bit of time, but they're all generated. You can generate them all.
How much is a little bit of time?
Well, so Your Honor, the first thing I'd have to do in order to meet my understanding is I can go back in and relabel everything based on this.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just trying to get the jury out here. How long are we talking about? Not why it's going to take as long as it will. How long will it take?
To relabel everything, I'm guessing about 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh,
in
okay.
order to do the reports, Your Honor, that'll take a little bit longer.
Okay. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a big problem. Before you're cross, you should be able to at least get the basics. Okay? Anything else?
No.
Ask the jurors to come out, please.
Okay.
Hey, would you
So,
put it?
I need a. That's not going to be shown on the screen.
You need to do what?
Put a piece of paper over it. Can you do that? No, you probably can't.
I think there's.
When you ask earlier question, Your Honor, I can do that in about 5 minutes and make them only the numbers.
Okay.
If you just, that's what
Ask
I'm
the would you ask the jurors if they tell them it's going to be about 5 more minutes, and they're welcome to go upstairs if they want, or stay down here. And tell them I'm sorry I didn't turn on the music for them. Right.
Okay, Jamal.
Ask the jurors to come in, please. We're back, and how long was that 5-minute break? All right, we're going to be on our best behavior from here on in. Mr.
Thank you. Dr. Black, just to back up, the time calculations that I asked you to perform of the events of August 25th of 2020 from what we would refer to as, I'm trying to find it, observation number 3, which has been labeled PSSP now. Oh. Is that jury on? Is this TV on?
Yeah.
Okay.
What does that say in Chinese?
You'd have to.
It's just a screensaver of kanji, Your Honor.
What is it?
It's just a screensaver of a certain type of kanji.
Okay,
I do not.
maybe,
No.
Dr. Black, from, as I said, observation number 3, which has been labeled PSSP, till observation 31, which is now going to be labeled STP, what is the total amount of time of this event?
2 minutes and 55 seconds, approximately. It's calculated out. There's a bunch of variables in there, but approximately 2 minutes and 55 seconds, slightly under 3 minutes.
Please show video PSSP, screen 3.
Can you refer to it by number, please?
Observation 3.
Observation 3.
Now, have you done anything to change this video?
No, sir. You'll notice in the screen it's at 100%, 1280 by 720, and if you wanted more knowledge about it, it's at 30 frames per second, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
But it's unchanged.
Please play the video.
Okay, this is just a still frame, sir, that you want.
Okay.
There. But I can play from here. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. It's I'm going to have to finish processing for a second.
Stop, please. Now, that is in this calculation of time, that would be the 0 frame. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, at this point here, that would be approximately where what you're referring to as the 0 frame. That red mark would be the 0 frame.
Okay. Now, the next observation 4, which is JRPK, did you do anything to enhance this video?
No, but I'm going to have to, with the numbering
occurring while we were gone. You're asking for an observation that's no longer sitting in this. I mean, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're asking for.
Well, in the Exhibit 142, Observation 4, we've agreed to label it JRPK.
Right, but, okay. As part of what happened with what we had discussed, the observation 4 that's on here is no longer in the menu to the left. If I have to, I'd have to bring it back. I can get you there if you
Is
want.
Observation 5 available?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Observation 5, the event described has been labeled BBTB. Has anything been done to enhance this?
No, and this idea, as I'm bringing it up, in answer to your question, there's different places where Observation 5 that you're referring to is being shown in different videos. This is one of those.
Okay, please play this video. Stop. Going to Observation 7, which has been now labeled JREC. Do you have that?
I do, sir.
Now can you go back to the...
I will.
You ready?
I am.
Can you play that, please? Stop. Now, this screen is the start of the gunshots that have been attributed to Kyle Rittenhouse, correct?
For what's been referred to as Event 1, that is correct.
Okay. And using your program regarding sound and video, you have determined how far apart shot 1 and shot 4 were, correct?
I have.
And that's by using the frames per second and the audio graph?
It's a combination between them both, but yes.
Okay. And if I label shot 1 as 0 time, when does shot 2 occur?
Approximately 3/4 second by the different timings, 0.739.
Okay. I want to get shot number 2 first.
Oh, I'm sorry, my fault. The second shot, using shot 1 as a 0 point, would occur 0.263 seconds after shot 1.
Okay. And what is the time between shots? What is the second and third shot?
The time between the second and third shot would be 0.247.
And the time elapsed between the third and fourth shot?
The time between the third and fourth shot would be 0.229.
And the total of those 4 shots fired by Kyle Rittenhouse occur in what amount of time?
0.739, or again, approximately 3/4 second.
Now, the shot, and you're looking at this videos, is not, those 4 shots are not the first shot, correct?
The first shot within the soundtrack around that time, those 4 shots are not the first shot that I hear within examining this video. That is correct.
And how many shots or shot were heard before those 4 shots?
Well, there's gunshots throughout the evening that I examined, but there's one clear shot that's heard prior to that.
And that occurred how many seconds before shot 0 or shot 1, which is the same shot?
So the shot, you referred to 2 shots as shot 1. So shot 0, the difference between what we're calling the first shot and then shot 0, is that correct?
Well, no. What I will refer to as the Zeminski shot. Counsel, we agree that. first shot was Mr. Zeminski. The Zeminski shot to Kyle shot 0.
The time between the Zeminski shot, as you referred to it, and the shot attributed to Kyle Rittenhouse as his first shot would be approximately about 2 3/4 seconds. Again, I can look at the exact thing if you want. I just don't have the
That's
time in
fine,
front of me.
sir. Now, going down to screen 15, what we have labeled A1ST. Can you find that, please? Now, is this a still shot or a video?
This is a marked frame within the video stream.
Okay, could you back it up, say, 3 seconds?
That's approximately 2.5. Is that enough?
Go back just a little bit more. That's good.
Okay.
And would you play that? Stop. Now, that observation, according to Exhibit 142, took place 28 seconds after the beginning of Mr. Rittenhouse leaving car source 3.
That is correct. There is an assumed time in there also.
Okay, and tell the jury about an assumed time.
So, when looking at these videos, I have no continuous video stream that takes me from event 1 into the front end of what we're calling event 2. There's a gap. So what I did was I took a look on the video, event 2 that we're looking at right now, that you've seen is referred to before as the BGO video, and I measured a distance at the pace that Kyle Rittenhouse was running, jogging, whatever we want to refer to it. I have a known distance, and I have a time that it took him to run that known distance. Because I also have another known distance where he came from in the prior stuff, what I did is I applied basic math saying if it took him this long to run this, I'm going to just take that same time of running over here. And then what I did is I put that in as the gap to fill it in. It does not address if he may have stopped or anything else in between that. It simply addresses if it was a constant state of motion.
Now, and what was your general deviation? I don't want to say general deviation, but what numbers? What number did you come up with for that?
Basically, I used 9.05 or 9 seconds. So I allowed 9 seconds between the first part of it, and that's what's in the calculations. And again, those calculations are to add into the total time. Those calculations will not be, for example, time between shots or events that are on the same video stream, because those are known frames per second times a certain time equals a certain time.
So basically your calculation was that to run the distance of 150 feet, it took Kyle approximately 9 seconds.
Correct.
Now, what we've labeled the beginning of event number 2 was screen 15, which we just played, and that is depicting an individual on screen where Mr. Rittenhouse's hat is knocked off. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the next event, which is screen 16, which we have labeled A2ST, could you go about 10 seconds before that and show that?
Okay, so screen 16 is here. You'll notice it says 11:50. I will try to get approximately 10 seconds earlier.
You know, that's plenty far back.
You want me to play at this point?
Please. Stop. Did you do any slowing down of this observation?
Yes, I did.
Could you please show me that? What you just played for the jury was real time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and there's a slow motion version?
Yes, much like what you saw Senior Examiner Armstrong this year, which is about to be played.
No. Stop.
That's
the slow motion of screen 16.
Is this the one you're referring to, sir?
Yes. Yes. Can you go back, please? We lost
Sure.
are both of them on?
The long one. I tried to hit it twice really quick. It works so. Twice now should work. There you go.
Watching it on? Is everybody watching it on this one? Oh, there it goes. I don't know why it's not coming up on that one. I did.
I can move the TV centrally.
It's showing up on one TV. It's got nothing to do with the other TV.
There. Thank you, Doctor. Is it on this one also? Okay. Now, please play this screen in slow motion, Doctor. Stop. The next screen is 17 which we have labeled KRLB. Can you bring that up, sir? And go ahead. Stop. This video, have you slowed it down for analysis?
I have.
Could you please bring that up on the screen? And what speed will you be playing this at?
This one is done at a quarter speed.
Okay. And you have taken the sound out of it?
The soundtrack is not present, that's correct. Sound, since it is, as I explained earlier, uncompressed, the sound would not sync up when you slow it down.
Okay. And so then you would hear sound of gunshots, but not when they're occurring. Is that a fair statement?
Any of the sound that you hear would not be when it's occurring.
Okay. Please show the quarter speed video. Stop it, please. Now, using this video and the audio graph, were you able to figure the times of certain events in event number 2?
Yes, sir.
From the time, strike that. There is what's commonly referred to as jump kick man entering in the video. Do you know who we're talking about, Doctor?
I do.
And when you analyze this video, did jump kick man kick Kyle in the face first, or the first shot go off before the kick?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope of the court's order regarding this witness's opinion.
It seems to me the jury could. You're asking him to make an identification that the jurors could make themselves?
I'm asking him, based upon his video analysis, what happened first. The kick to the face in the first gunshot in event number 2, or the gunshot in event number 2, and then the kick to the face.
Overall.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Yes. Based upon your analysis of the video and sound analysis, what occurred first, the kick to the face by jump kick man to my client, or the first gunshot?
Based on my analysis, the kick to the face occurred prior to the gunshot.
And after that was Kyle's first shot in the second event, correct?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, after the kick, the first shot in the second event occurred. That is correct.
Okay. And that happens, thousandths of a second after. They're very close in time, correct?
They're absolutely very close in time.
Shot number 1, using that first shot at jump kick man as the 0 shot, how much time elapsed from the 0 shot to Kyle Rittenhouse second shot at jump kick man?
From the beginning time of shot 1 in the second event till the point of shot 4 was 5.468 seconds.
Are you looking at the exhibit?
I am. And maybe I'm misunderstanding your question.
I have the amount of time elapsing from the 0 shot to the second shot.
I think I know what's here.
Kyle's second shot in that event. I'm crossing references, and I apologize.
To make this as clear as possible, the first shot in the second event between that time and the fourth shot in the second event is 2.933 seconds.
Okay. And how many shots were fired in event number 2 in total?
For the shots from what's been attributed to Kyle Rittenhouse, 4.
Okay. And the timing between each shot. So Kyle Rittenhouse, and I'll keep it constant. Kyle Rittenhouse shot 1 is at the 0 time, correct?
If we use that as a 0 time or starting point, we will call that 0.
Okay. Kyle Rittenhouse shot number 2, which was directed at Jump Kick Man. How long after shot 1?
0.602 seconds.
Shot number 3, which is the strike, the shot to Anthony Huber. How long was that shot after shot number 2?
1.933.
And the last shot, from Mr. Huber's shot to Gage Grosquist's shot was how much time?
Okay, and I'm going to back up on this because I want to make sure this is absolutely clear for the court. Again, 2.933. In one case, we're talking the gap or time between shots. What I just relayed was the time between shots. The total time of all shots was, again, my first answer, 5.468. So this is just clarification for the court.
And so the total of this event of shots fired is 5.468 seconds.
That is correct.
And that event ends at screen 27. You just roll this.
I have 26.
Okay. Which is shot number 4? KRS4. Go ahead.
You want it played here, sir?
Yeah, if you back up about 2 seconds.
And do you want it played in this size or back to normal?
That size is fine in a factor of half or quarter speed, please.
That would be at normal speed. From approximately the same point, slowed down.
Can you go forward until Mr. Rittenhouse gets up, please?
Yes, sir.
You can stop there. Based upon your video analysis, after this time, does Mr. Rittenhouse fire his weapon anymore?
No.
And from here, Mr. Rittenhouse leaves and continues north down Sheridan Road till he gets to a police officer squad, correct?
Yes, sir.
And from that time in getting up until he arrives at the police squad car to surrender, how much time is that?
Doing quick math, approximately 1 minute and 26 and about 3/4 second.
So 126.75?
Approximately, that's just doing quick math.
Understood. Now, you were in court yesterday to hear the testimony and cross-examination of Kyle Rittenhouse, correct?
I was.
And you observed the demonstration that the state put on in showing frames 476 to 500 in the BG of the scene video, correct?
I did.
And 476 to 500 is how many frames per second?
Well, depending on the video that they were showing, my understanding, if my recollection is correct, is they had told us that it was 30 frames per second.
Okay. And at 30 frames per second, that would have been less than a half second of actual action that are broken down into stills, correct?
Again, the numbers being 476, is that correct?
476 to 500.
Right, so that would be 24 frames at 30 frames per second. If it was 30 frames per second, it would be approximately 3/4 of a second.
And Doctor, when one looks at video as a depiction of an event, does that necessarily show what the actors in that video were observing?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope of the court's order.
This is the video that... Overall.
The short answer is it's impossible for it to do that. Describing it to you the best way that I can. Imagine, well, you were just doing it. All of you were looking at a video screen, a depiction. It's a known focal length from you, yet you can see from maybe, if I go halfway between the jury, about 12 feet, and that stays constant. And then you look from that distance all the way out to 50 yards. Everything in that frame is at the same exact moment of clarity. But your eyes can't do that. The other thing is you're looking at 2 actors in this case, maybe 5 or 10 actors that you were looking at, depending on what each one of you chose to look at. So the video can't tell you what each one of you were looking at, and it can't tell you what either actor in there was looking at, attending to, nor perceiving. Putting that in its context, though, video has absolute benefit to an analyst to help us understand what was objectively occurring, and that's the way that we use it, and that's, in my argument, the way it should be used. But it also has potential limitations, and I think you actually heard Senior Examiner Armstrong speak to some of those limitations. Camera movement, movement of people, lighting. So for example, we can brighten it up a little bit or clarify it. You can't do that with your eyes. So the short answer is video has great value, but it is not the experience or the perception of the people involved in the event. It can't be.
What is the difference? I mean, video is 2-dimensional?
Yes, sir.
And reality is 3-dimensional?
At a minimum.
Okay. And how does that not translate, if you can opine on that?
Absolutely. So for the members of the jury, if you were to just take and pick a point that's maybe about 6 feet in front of you, maybe on Madam Court Reporter's desk, and you were also to pick a point over here and look at it, I want you to have both of those points in perfect clarity at the same time. Now what I want you to do is, I'm holding up my glasses, so I've already told you what it is, but I want everybody to sort of look at the same point you picked on Madam Court Reporter's desk, and then while you're completely focusing on that, tell me when my glasses dropped. We can see that in the video. We have the luxury of hindsight. We have the luxury of going back and taking a single frame. Think about this, 30 frames per second. The blink of an eye is approximately a third of a second. In the blink of an eye, 3 frames have gone by. And we will sit here and examine a frame for moments, minutes, who knows how long an examiner looks at it. That's not wrong. We should be doing that. That's due diligence. But we also have to remember what was the limitation of the actors involved. What were they looking at? What could they even have seen? What were they attending to? What was happening to them? This goes back to the area of sense making that you heard the counsel speak to. And then more importantly, when we get done with it, we bring it back up to normal speed and say that's the best it could get, regardless of all the slow motion we do to it, enhancing of video levels, clarification, light, all those types of things.
Lastly, Doctor, the shots in event 1 took less than 1 second, approximately 3/4 of a second.
Approximately 3/4 of a second.
And the events, event number 2, the 4 shots in event number 2 took a total of 2.93 seconds, correct?
That's incorrect. They took a total of 5.468.
I apologize.
2.933 was the time between the third and the fourth shot.
So the total between the 2 events of shooting is less than 7 seconds.
Are you asking if you were to put both those 2 figures together?
Yes.
Yeah, it's about 6.5 seconds.
I have nothing further.
Cross-examine? Well, wait a minute. We need a break? No? Okay, let's go.
Do you want this off screen, counsel?
No, you can leave it up. That's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You indicated earlier that your law enforcement experiences in the state of Oregon. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
You have never worked as a law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin?
No, I have not.
And you were retained by the defense to provide expert opinions in this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you are being compensated for that?
Yes, sir.
What is your hourly rate?
It varies somewhere between, for certain tasks, $160 an hour, and other tasks up to $480 an hour.
And for your testimony here right now, are you billing at a rate of $480 an hour?
No, sir, I'm billing at a rate of $320 an hour.
$320 an hour to be
Yes.
here in court? to
Yes, sir.
testify? You indicated that when you timed the gap in time between what we are referring to as the Zeminski shot, that's the first gunshot, in the incident between the defendant and Joseph Rosenbaum. You're familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir, I am.
The time between that and the defendant's first shot at Joseph Rosenbaum, you timed that at, I believe you said, about 2 3/4 seconds. Is that correct?
And I can bring it up exactly if you want.
Yeah, could you
Is that
please?
helpful? So here you can see the first shot over here where my cursor is moving at 24.61, and then the first shot here at 27.25. So obviously if you go out to the hundredths, you see it down here where my cursor is moving, and I can take a look at my notes, but it would be the time between those 2. So again, approximately 2 3/4, thereabouts.
Okay. And you have also broken down the gap in time between the defendant's fourth shot to Joseph Rosenbaum and the time in which that first person comes up behind him and swings at his head. Do you understand those 2 events that I'm describing? If it's helpful, your observation, so on the list of observations you have, observation 11 is shot number 4 to Joseph Rosenbaum. Do you see that?
Right, so if I understand correctly, we're asking for the time between 11 and 15?
Yes.
Okay.
glad you're doing the math for me, by the way. 'cause I'm not
I'm
good at
about to bring my calculator up in front of the screen for you guys. But putting that aside, 1.837. So rough math again, about 1 minute 48 seconds thereabouts.
So it takes approximately 1 minute and 48 seconds between the time that the defendant shoots Joseph Rosenbaum the fourth time and the time that the first person on the street makes, shall we say, physical contact with Mr. Rittenhouse?
And I apologize, I was doing the time between number 14. So the time between, and just to make sure we're correct, 15 is the observation you're referring to, correct?
Yes.
And the time between observation 11?
Yes. If it's helpful, Doctor, I'm doing rough math in my head. It appears to be roughly 59 seconds, about a minute.
48,
Would that sound about right?
48, 49, 50, 57. That would be correct.
Okay, so about a minute passes between. The second incident is the one that, for the purposes of describing it, we're talking about the second incident being the one in which the defendant fires 2 shots at an unknown assailant who's trying to kick him in the face, 1 shot into the chest of Anthony Huber, and 1 shot into the arm of Gage Grosskreutz. That's the second event that we're talking about, correct?
Correct, and if we're talking about, that would be the start of the video that you saw.
And this is a video that we've also referred to as the BG on the scene video, is that right?
Yeah, BGO on the scene, yes, sir.
Okay. And you had the ability to show us this video zoomed in and at 1/4 speed, is that right?
Well, it's not zoomed in as you see it here, but yes, I do have that ability.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You have the ability with your software to do that as it plays?
As it plays, yes, sir.
Okay. So, for example, the one that's up on the screen right now, that is the normal speed version? Or is this the slowed down?
That would be the slowed, and the light levels have also been enhanced slightly.
Okay. And the version that we've got on the screen right now, that's 1/4 speed?
That would be 1/4 speed, yes, sir.
And is this video that you've got on the screen something where you could play it for us right now, starting at the point we see on the screen, all the way past where the defendant shoots Mr. Grosskreutz at 1/4 speed?
Yes, sir, I can.
Can you do that for us, please?
Yes, sir.
Can you pause here, please, Doctor? At this moment in the video, do you have the ability to zoom in so that we can see even clearer the area between the defendant and Mr. Grosskreutz? Could you? Where you'll be able to keep the video centered on that location?
I can, you'll see me moving to do it, but I can do it as I'm moving. There'll be a little bit of a jag. It's not going to be smooth.
Would you be able to play from this point and try and keep it in as zoomed, as clear, as close as possible so we can see the defendant and Mr. Grosskreutz? Do you understand what I'm asking?
The goal would be to keep this and this in frame at the speed that's being played.
Yes. Could you do that for us, please? Pause right there, please. Now, Dr. Black, if I can look at your Exhibit 142, you have a number of observation points there. I think there are a total of 31 of them on this list. Do you have that in front of you still?
I do.
Okay. And observation point number 8 is the first shot that the defendant fires at Joseph Rosenbaum. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And observation number 26 is the final shot that the defendant fires at Mr. Grosskreutz, correct?
Also correct.
Can you tell us the amount of time that passes between the first shot, observation number 8, to Joseph Rosenbaum, and the final shot to Mr. Grosskreutz, which is observation number 26?
I can, and again, and just to make sure that I have the numbers again, we're looking for observation 26, correct? As the stop point. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay. And your start point one more time, please.
Observation 8.
8.
To observation 26.
Approximately 1 minute and 20 seconds.
In that 1 minute and approximately 1 minute and 20 seconds, the defendant fires all 8 shots that we see. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You indicated also you've measured the time between the 2 shots that the defendant fires at the person who jumps and tries to kick him in the face.
Yes, sir.
And you indicated that the gap between that first shot to that individual and the second shot to that individual was 0.602 seconds.
Yes, sir.
So approximately 0.6 of a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you also have the ability with the software that you're using to give us the data that's generated by that software. There's a separate report you can generate as part of that. Is that fair to say?
For part of it, what's referred to as a workflow report. So basically, the actions that I took upon a piece of video, the workflow, whether it's enlargement or these type of things, those can be generated.
And do you have the ability to generate that here today, if you wanted to?
It would take a little bit of time. I can generate it. I wouldn't say that I could generate it today. I'd probably have to do it during the evening, but I can get them generated.
Okay, and that would show us the work that you've done to modify, edit, or do anything to the videos that we're showing in this, in what you've testified to so far, correct?
Yes, between the notes, as in if I write down a parent file, and then this was changed from 30 frames per second to 7.5, using nearest neighbor with a crop like this, I'd be able to do that.
Okay. And you indicated earlier that you're being paid hourly for this. How much in total so far have you billed the defense for the work you've done in this case?
Estimated at probably a little over $9,000.
Your Honor, we asked earlier for some data that he can generate for us. I'd like to see that before I finish my examination of this witness.
No objection.
Okay. So at this point, I'll pause.
Okay, well,
We could put on a different witness while that's
that'd
happening.
be great.
Is that acceptable?
Yes, thank you.
May he leave? Yes.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Please state your name, spelling your last name for the record.
Officer Brittany Bray, last name spelled B-R-A-Y.
Officer, were you employed by the Kenosha Police Department on August 25th, 26th of 2020?
Yes, sir.
And in the early morning hours of the 26th, did you have an occasion to collect some evidence?
Yes, sir.
And directing your attention to what we're referring to as event number 2 or crime scene number 2 on Sheridan Road. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Now, if I show you some exhibits, would you be able to tell me if you're familiar with them?
Yep.
Just take a look at those and see.
Yes, I'm familiar with all of them.
Okay, and what are they?
They are shell casings.
And are they all the same caliber?
Yes, sir.
And are they all the same make or brand?
Yes, they are.
And those were found in the middle of Sheridan Road?
Correct.
And did you find or log into evidence any unfired bullets at that location of that caliber and that brand?
No.
If there had been an unfired bullet matching those empty shell casings, is that something you would have taken as evidence?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Move those exhibits into evidence.
Objection?
No.
Receive.
Now the bullets and the gun, please. What's that? going to show you what's been marked as exhibit defense. Can you read the number for me? I don't have my glasses.
Sure. 983.
Defense 146.
146. There you go.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It is a 40 caliber Glock 27 that I collected on scene.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part of what you said. Could you say?
Sure, sorry. It's a Glock 27 40 caliber handgun I collected at the scene.
Okay, you collected that on Sheridan Road on the 26th?
Correct.
And it is still in the same condition and box you put it in?
Yes, sir.
Showing you what's been marked as defense exhibit 147. Could you tell me what that is?
It is the magazine that was collected near the gun.
Okay, is that magazine loaded?
It is,
Did you ever determine how many bullets were in that magazine?
I believe, 9.
Is that on the label?
The amount of bullets?
Yeah.
No.
And lastly, defense exhibit 148. Could you tell me what that is?
This is going to be the unfired 40 caliber round I found near the gun.
Okay, so there was an unfired round D148 found in the same area as the shells that were in the magazine and the Glock, correct?
Correct.
And did you ever look to see if they were the same make and model?
I did.
Were they?
Yes.
So, might sound like an obvious question or a stupid question, but you at a crime scene, if you find an unfired bullet, you pick that up.
Yes.
I have nothing further.
Cross-examine.
What's that? I would move them into evidence.
Is there objection?
No.
Numbers
146, 147, and 148.
are received.
Good morning, Officer Bray.
Good morning.
Did you collect any other guns or evidence, well, let me put it this way, any other guns than what you've just testified to?
No.
Are you familiar with AR-15s?
Yes.
How are you familiar with them?
I own them. I've shot them. I've trained with them.
Have you ever had an experience where one has jammed on you?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
You have to clear it, usually to rack the slide back to eject the jam, whatever the round is that's jammed in there. Send it forward and another bullet would go into the chamber.
When you have to eject whatever's in the chamber, the thing that's being ejected, is that a spent shell casing or is it
Could be
an
either
unfired
or.
one?
Could be either or.
We need to make sure we're not talking at the same time for the
Sure.
benefit of the court reporter. So, in your experience, have you ever had a situation in which you have pulled the trigger, the round has fired, but the spent shell casing did not automatically eject like it should?
Yes.
And then that process you've described would be the way of ejecting that spent shell casing?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
Sure, it's been previously marked as Exhibit 28. Not this specific gun, but are you familiar with guns like this type?
Yes.
And if one had a jam or had to clear, one would pull back. I don't know how to do it.
There you go. Yep.
Right here,
Correct.
Show the trigger.
And that would eject the bullet that was here, correct?
Correct.
And I've got a standard ruler that I was provided by the court from the back of where the charger sits to the end of it. 4 inches. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
And to clear the weapon, you have to take it all the way back and let it all the way forward.
Yes.
Which is a very obvious movement, correct?
Yep.
It takes time.
Yes.
Just one briefly. So, if you just fired that gun and that spent shell casing didn't properly eject, what would happen if you pulled the trigger then?
It
Again.
would go click. It wouldn't go bang.
So, in order to fire the gun a second time after that, you'd have to do that re-racking. Is that right?
Correct.
And then if there were ammunition in the magazine, it would load another round and the gun would be ready to fire.
Correct.
That's all I have.
Let me step down.
Interview with Frank Hernandez.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Sir, will you state your name and spell your last name, please?
My name is Frank Andrew Hernandez, also known as Drew Hernandez publicly. My last name Hernandez.
Okay. And Mr. Hernandez, can you tell us a little bit of your background in terms of what you do for work?
So I'm a professional commentator on Real America's Voice. I commentate on the news, I commentate on what's in pop culture on a daily basis, and I also do on-the-ground reporting, specifically on protests and the 2020 riots.
And as it relates to the your on-the-ground kind of reporting is what I'm interested in. Were you in Kenosha on the evening of August 25th of 2020?
Yes.
And were you there to cover what was happening with the civil unrest in Kenosha?
Yes.
Right. And were you able to do that with some type of video equipment?
I use my iPhone, and I also use a body cam. And specifically on this night, that's what I was using to document the riots.
Now, after the 25th, I don't want to know where you live, but you don't live in Kenosha. Is that
No.
fair?
No.
Was there a time after the 25th that someone from law enforcement had reached out to you to try to get a hold of some of the information that you had through video?
Yes, I don't remember his name specifically, but a detective did reach out to me.
Okay. If I said it was Detective Ben Antaramian or Detective Martin Howard, does that do anything
One of
for
the
you?
two. He identified himself from Kenosha.
And were you able to make connection in some form or fashion with those law enforcement officers?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just briefly explain kind of how that went down?
So they requested all the footage that I had, and they sent me a Dropbox link that was not sufficient. It only had, I don't know, not enough memory because the body cam footage is, over 50 videos. But the reason why I wasn't able to follow up was because I was covering all the riots last year. I was in Portland, Seattle, Washington, D.C., was all over the country, so I just lost track.
Okay, so is it fair to say after the civil unrest in Kenosha, your employment then took you to cover other things going on around the United States?
Yes.
And so, if I have it right, you and law enforcement had kind of not been able to period of time after that.
Yes.
Was there a period of time then closer to today or this trial that you were able to do that?
Yes, I did that through my attorney.
And were you able then to provide to both Mr. Rittenhouse's lawyers and the prosecution a full set of the videos that you had mentioned that you had taken?
Yes.
And so my questions to you initially will be this. Were you kind of working by yourself that evening, or were you working with a team, or what?
Yes, last year I was working independently by myself.
And is it fair to say that on that night you didn't know who Kyle Rittenhouse was?
No.
I don't know if you've heard this, but there's been other people mentioned, Mr. Rosenbaum. Were you aware of who that was?
No.
Were you aware of Mr. Huber or Mr. Grosskreutz?
No.
Okay, so you had no knowledge of any of these people prior to August 25th?
Nope.
Fair? Okay. So looking back now, understanding you're familiar with who Mr. Rittenhouse is now, correct?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to look at more videos to see if you had captured Mr. Rittenhouse on video, had any type of contact with him in any way?
I've had no contact with Kyle Rittenhouse, but I have looked at footage to just go over it, yes.
And does your footage capture any, excuse me, any contact, maybe not personal contact, but anything that you saw Mr. Rittenhouse doing that evening?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
So Antifa and the rioters were going head to head with the police in front of the courthouse, and as they were doing so, the police then responded. I believe they called an unlawful assembly of some sort, because Antifa had their riot shields out. They were throwing rocks at the police officers. They were even trying to get inside of the hood of one of the police vehicles. And this is all documented on footage that I submitted as well. But to answer your question, when the rioters were being dispersed further from Sheridan towards the Car Source dealerships down the street, the rioters were grabbing concrete slabs. They were throwing them on the floor to create more rocks and to throw them at police officers. They were launching fireworks and other explosives that I couldn't identify. But as they were being agitate them, to try and start some conflict with them, saying, "You ain't the police, you ain't the police." The rioters initiated that conflict.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike. He's speculating as to the intent of people.
You need to proceed by question and answer.
Very good. Okay. So my question is this. Did you see, in reviewing your videos, did you see Mr. Rittenhouse on the 25th?
Yes, and that at that point, Kyle Rittenhouse came out of Car Source 2 and he attempted to de-escalate the situation.
Okay, so if I have this right, we've been all doing this for almost 2 weeks now. But this is the Car Source 2, or Car Doctor it has now been referred to. This is the place you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And that is the first time that you had observed Mr. Rittenhouse, is that fair?
Yes.
Right. And you had said that you had saw him come out from inside the building?
Yes, it appeared to be.
And did you hear, did you just see him, or did you hear anything he was saying?
I just saw him.
And what did it appear that he was doing?
In the video, Kyle has his hands like this, and he is saying something, but I can't identify what he's saying, but he clearly attempts to de-escalate the situation, and he actually is successful because the rioters then disperse.
During that evening, I know that you said you didn't know who he was, but did you, in looking back at your videos, have an opportunity to observe someone that evening, Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And do you recall, just tell me where you saw him originally, if you can.
The first time I saw Mr. Rosenbaum was when the police were pushing the rioters back to the gas station on Sheridan, Ultimate, I believe. And Mr. Rosenbaum was pushing a flaming dumpster on fire into police vehicles that were occupied by officers and human beings.
Mr. Hernandez, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 149. Can you identify that? Tell me what that is, a photo of?
This is a photo of the event I just described.
Okay. And does that photograph, that's a still photograph of a video that you took, is that
Yes.
right? All right. I'm going to ask that you look to your left.
Okay.
And if you can play that, can you tell me if that's what you captured? Is that the video that you're talking about with Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you just back it up a second? That's good. There's a person who's putting out that dumpster fire, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall, or can you tell whether or not that person, at least visibly, was armed?
No, not at the time.
You couldn't tell if that person was armed?
No.
Did you see, I'll ask it to you this way, that's probably a bad question. Did you see a weapon on that person?
No.
And can you just play the video then? After you captured that video, then was there other? Did you capture Mr. Rosenbaum then doing anything again after that video?
Yes, he immediately was triggered and aggravated because an individual.
Now, why do you say that?
Because you can even hear at the end of the video, Rosenbaum is saying, "Why do you do that?" And right after this event is when they identified the individual with the fire extinguisher with the individuals with the rifles in the gas station, and their attention went from the police immediately to the individuals at the gas station.
So what I'm interested in is Mr. Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Did you see Mr. Rosenbaum do anything that kind of drew your attention after what we saw?
Absolutely. He led the charge into the gas station. He was getting physically aggressive. He appeared to be attempting to start a physical altercation with people in the gas station, to the point where he was telling one of the individuals with a rifle, "Shoot me, N-word, shoot me, N-word," clearly attempting to start a physical altercation.
So I'm going to show you what has been marked as I think it's 150. Can you tell the jury what that is?
This is right after the dumpster was put out, and Joseph Rosenbaum and other rioters around him begin to turn their attention onto the individuals with rifles at the Ultimate gas station.
A little bit forward, Is that Mr. Rosenbaum that we see kind of will be on the right side of our screen?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. So you observed, that's you filming that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now the last thing I'm going to ask you about is was there another time prior to the shooting of Mr. Rosenbaum that you observed Mr. Rosenbaum and Mr. Rittenhouse in the same location?
Yes.
And if you know, about how long before the shooting did you see that?
So after this scene at the gas station, there was another fire at a mechanic shop a block away. Went to go document that for about 20 minutes. And when I came back is when I saw Rosenbaum in the middle of the street lighting a trash can on fire with now his identity concealed with a t-shirt over his face.
So I'm going to show you what is red marked as Exhibit 151. Can you tell me what that is?
This is when I returned to Sheridan after documenting the fire at the mechanic shop about a block away. And this is the beginning of when I see what I just described.
Okay. And I might have you stop it. So. Now, can you tell me, is this person right here? Do you know now that's Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
I didn't hear the question. Do you know now that?
That's Mr. The person in that video is Mr. Rosenbaum. Now, was that did you see Mr. Rosenbaum with that mask on that you had talked, the shirt wrapped around his head?
Yes.
Okay. And he appears to be walking, southbound on Sheridan?
Yes, towards Car Source 3.
Okay. Can you roll it again? You see this person right here?
Yes.
Does that person appear to be holding something in their hand?
Yes, that is a fire extinguisher.
Okay. And does that person appear to have on something on his hands or on their hands?
Yes, purple gloves.
Okay. Is this the person right here? I know it's blurry right now, but is that the person that you saw carrying the fire extinguisher
Yes.
with the purple gloves? Okay. Now, go ahead. If you know, or based on what you saw, did this person here with the fire extinguisher and purple gloves, did that person react to anybody else that you saw at this point that was walking in front of him?
No.
Okay. Did you see him at this point? Was he, in your opinion, did he say anything?
Yes, if you play the video further, I believe you could hear Kyle saying or requesting if anybody needs medical. And the reason why it may not be shown on this is because it's body cam, but I could see this with my own vision as I'm walking down the street.
Okay, go ahead. Now, at this point, it appears this person here is Joseph Rosenbaum. Is that right?
Yeah, if you back it up a couple seconds, you'll see him even more clearly, and that is Joseph Rosenbaum, yes.
Now, when he was walking down the street, headed south on Sheridan, he was ahead of Mr. Rittenhouse, is that right?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Now, in this photograph, or still, the video, he appears to be behind him?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you hear somebody say, "Fuck you," right?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to ascertain or make out who said that?
At the time, no. No.
And you see, right, Joseph Rosenbaum running after Kyle Rittenhouse. Is that about as close to the incident as you get?
At the direct time of the shooting, yes.
Did you see what Joseph Rosenbaum was doing as he was chasing Kyle Rittenhouse?
So I was at the corner of the car source, and the first thing I did identify was that Rosenbaum was charging Kyle Rittenhouse from behind. And then as he's charging him into the car source parking lot, a firearm goes off. You can see it in the frame at the top of the car.
Can I ask you to stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Did you hear that real time?
Hear it and saw it in real time.
Okay, go ahead.
And as the first firearm goes off, Rosenbaum is already charging Kyle from behind, attempts to throw a bag at him, not sure what's inside of it. And Kyle is right at the corner, right there, in the car source, and turns around, and Rosenbaum is lunging towards him very clearly, and Kyle fires.
And do you see that with your eyes
Yes.
that night?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your contact with Kyle that evening was just in terms of what you observed, I'm asking. Did you observe him acting in an aggressive manner to anyone that you observed?
In no way, shape, or form. The first time I saw Kyle, he actually de-escalated a situation.
Did you observe him at any time that evening pointing his firearm at anybody or threatening anybody with that firearm?
No.
Your Honor, I would move, I think it's 149 to 151, and I don't have any other questions for Mr. Hernandez.
Objection?
No.
Cross-examine.
Your Honor, do we want to take a break? It's noon.
I'm told the food is coming around 12:15, so why don't you go ahead now, please?
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hernandez.
Good afternoon.
Where do you live normally?
I live in Arizona.
So you don't live in Kenosha?
No.
You don't live in Wisconsin?
Nope.
You came up here because you wanted to cover the things that were going on in Kenosha after the shooting of Jacob Blake. Is that fair to say?
The violent riots, yes.
The violent riots?
Yeah.
By Antifa?
There were Black Lives Matter supporters. Antifa was present. This is all documented on video, yes.
You've made a lot of videos of what you consider to be Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots in Seattle, Portland, D.C., other cities, fair to say?
I haven't made them, I documented them.
Well, did you record them?
Yes.
Okay, so when I said made, you recorded video.
Yep.
And that's because you, and then you take that video and you post it on where?
Twitter, mainly, social media.
You also have your own YouTube channel?
Yes.
Do you have your own independent website that you operate?
I do have an independent website, yes.
What's that called?
wls-live.com.
What is that?
That's my own independent website.
But is it like a news source? Is it
It's
a
an
blog?
independent website.
Of what type?
For myself.
You characterized yourself as a professional commentator. What does that mean?
That means that I comment on the news professionally on a daily basis.
Professionally meaning you're paid?
Yep.
Who pays you?
I am employed by Real America's Voice.
Real America's Voice?
Yes.
What is that?
That is a news commentary, breaking news website. They have their own apps and, website.
Other than getting paid by Real America's Voice, do you get paid by any other source to do your professional commentating?
No.
Is your Drew H. Live website part of Real America's Voice?
No.
The things that you post on your website, Drew H. Live, do you also share those with Real America's Voice?
Depending on what's going on where I'm at. But this is unrelated to what happened in Kenosha because I was not employed by Real America's Voice at the time.
That's something that's happened since then?
Yes.
And does Real America's Voice have any sort of political bias or agenda or anything like that?
What is the relevance?
It goes to the bias of the witness, Your Honor.
The bias in what respect? I assume that people... as I come at the beginning, this is not a political trial, and I don't know how you would isolate a person's particular politics and determine that person is going to evaluate the evidence one way or another.
Okay, I'll move on.
Your videos that you have captured of these incidents that you call riots, they're very slanted against the people who are rioting. You characterize them as Antifa, Black Lives Matter rioters, correct?
Because they are rioting in the footage, yes, absolutely.
And so you came here to Kenosha because you felt that's what was going on here?
I felt like it could have possibly been a riot on the first night. So when I showed up, it turned out to be a very violent riot.
And you continued to cover that on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights?
I covered it Sunday night. I went back to Chicago Monday and then came back Tuesday.
So you weren't here on Monday night at all?
No.
And on Tuesday night, you were recording video with your body cam?
Yeah.
You were also recording it with your cell phone?
Yes.
The last video that we just watched there of the shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum, was that recorded on your body cam or on your cell phone?
Both.
I just saw one video. Were there more than one video that you just shared with us?
There's two. There's the body cam and then there's the cell phone as well.
What was the one we just saw?
I believe that may have been both.
Where is the body cam located when you wear it on your body?
Right here.
And when you recorded the shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum, where were you holding your cell phone?
Right here.
Okay, so the cell phone is, you're using your right hand, above your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Shoulder, same as my shoulder, right here.
And the body cam you said was over on the left side of your chest.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
The video that we just saw had a single angle. It didn't have two separate angles. So when you tell us that's both, I don't understand what you mean.
That means that there's two recordings of the same thing, and that's why I submitted to the defense and the prosecution the entire videos. There's maybe about 80 to 100 videos that you guys could examine for yourself.
I know all that. What I'm asking you is what we just watched.
Mm-hmm.
Which camera were you using to record that?
Both.
Is that video edited?
No, I have not edited it, but it has been put together at the right time, the timing.
Who did that?
I did that.
So you combined two video sources into one?
With the same timing and audio, but at the same time, it could also be seen, the jury could see for themselves. If they look at the body cam footage, it's the exact same thing.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Don't wag your head in response to the witness's answer.
What you said, if the jury looks at the body cam footage, is that separate from the cell phone footage?
Yeah, there's obviously two devices recording.
And you're telling us that the video that we just watched, can we have Exhibit 151 played again, please? Mr. Hernandez, we have the video that was the last one played for you, Exhibit 151 up on the screen. Can we play that forward, please? Now, as we're watching this video, Mr. Hernandez, you're telling us that what we're seeing has been recorded by two separate devices at the same time?
This is a body cam.
Okay. Is there a point in this video where it switches to your cell phone?
Yes.
Can you please point that out to us?
You'd have to fast forward all the way to when I get to car source 3.
Can we skip? Let's skip to the 2.5 minute mark, I guess. I don't know. Let's pause right there.
A little further back.
Okay, can we go back maybe 30 seconds? I don't know.
A little further back. Right, start right here.
Okay.
I'll tell you when it switches.
Okay. Can we play from here, please?
Yeah, a little further up.
Why don't we hit play right now? Is the switch going to occur after this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there. Our little, hold on, here it goes. Right there.
Okay. Thank you. So what you did is you took a portion of your body cam video and a portion of your cell phone video and you spliced them together.
I don't know if I would say splice, but I put them together.
That's an old-fashioned movie term from when they used to have actual film. Why did you do that?
Because it's the same exact event. Like I said, you could take a look at the body cam footage as well. You can see it as well on there.
And you're testifying here today that through your attorney, you have provided the defense and the state with that entire incident recorded on both your body cam and on your cell phone?
Yep.
But what we just saw was your editing of them together.
You guys asked for my footage, so I gave it to you.
Through your attorney?
Yes.
That's an attorney that you have out of Madison?
No objections at all. What's the relevance of this?
Well, Your Honor, we've had a lot of questions about other people.
What's the relevance of this?
I would like to know why he felt the need to retain an attorney to provide video in this case. I think it goes to bias. I think it goes to credibility. It's been asked of other witnesses.
Let's take the lunch break. Please don't talk about the case during the break.
They're running behind, apparently.
Where's it coming from? Mr. Binger?
Your Honor, we've already heard other witnesses be asked about why they've
Simply that he hired a lawyer. He hired a lawyer to provide us with this evidence. It would be one thing if he hired a lawyer to organize the articles of incorporation for his business and it had nothing to do with the evidence in this case. The lawyer was the intermediary that gave us this evidence. That was I presume, and I'd like to ask, I presume that was Mr. Hernandez's choice not to give it to us directly. And again, there's been some testimony about him providing some things to the detectives by Dropbox and then not providing other things. And I'd like to probe that. And now in the middle of trial, right. And now in the middle of trial, suddenly we're getting a whole bunch more through an attorney. And so it's not just that he's hiring a random attorney, he's hiring an attorney that is with the same law firm as one of their expert witnesses.
Who's that?
Is it Henley Burrish?
What was that? I'm sorry.
I've got the name of the firm here, Your Honor, if I could have 1 second.
Hurley Burrish is the firm.
Hurley Burrish is the firm. They are out of Madison. And the defense has retained Peyton, Peyton, Engel, Engel, as an expert witness. He's employed by the same firm that also is representing this witness. So I think that goes to bias.
So you have an expert from a law firm? Is that what you're telling me? Am I understanding that right?
The expert did a phone dump. So they have an expert who does what you would describe as when law enforcement takes a cell phone and does a search of the phone.
Sure. Okay.
That's what he did. They employ someone there to do it for anyone, and we used that person to do it for Mr. Rittenhouse. They did no legal work, as that term for a lawyer-client kind of thing. He did it to do, I think it's a Cellbrite extraction.
If you asked me to do a phone dump, in addition to thinking, I would have to go to somebody to comply.
This is a law firm, Your Honor, that's getting presumably paid by the defense for expert witness services and presumably paid by this witness to represent him. There's a commonality there, and that, I believe, shows bias. Now, you may see it differently, the jury may see it differently, but I'd like to explore this, and the jury can evaluate how that affects the credibility of this witness. But it's not something where he's hiring an attorney to help him buy a piece of property or get him out of a divorce or something like that. It's directly pertaining to the evidence that he's testifying about in this case.
Well, I probably will allow this. I want to think about it for the next half hour. But I don't know if we're headed anywhere that's going to get us something of value. You're introducing on the subject of bias, which of course is bias evidence is admissible because it calls into credibility the witnesses. It calls into question the witness's credibility. He's generally just presented videos. There has been some testimonial statement, but I'll permit it, I think, somewhat, but you're talking about his employing a law firm, and for reasons we've already discussed, there's going to be a limit. In fact, I think I shut down somebody I was told not to inquire further on representation. Discussion with an attorney, I think it was Mr. Sharafazi asked about something and I wouldn't let him do it. So it's going to be a closely watched door. All right, anything else?
What time do you want to start?
Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor. But let's aim for 1 o'clock.